And we'll just kill the saturation there a little bit so it doesn't quite scream out the way it did. I am pretty happy with that. Maybe later on I might have a go at making the cheese plant a bit greener, but that doesn't really bother me. I can see that the bluest parts are behind the reflection of the wall in the glass panel there, so that's okay. His skin might be a little bit pink. In fact, his skin didn't need a lot of work. I didn't do anything to the skin on this one. It might be a touch on the pink side, but that's more of a second pass thing, so I'm quite happy with that. I'd say that's up to a first pass standard, so we'll save. We'll take a still in case we need it, and we will move on. Okay. Nope, none of these work, so we'll do it from scratch again. Let's bring our parade back up. Again, we don't typically just make one look and then copy and paste it across, making little tweaks. We might paste it to a few shots, we might do a load of stuff from hand, we might never actually copy a look across. It depends. Again, it's what's appropriate for the project at hand. It's not about having one very rigid set way or one kind of weird moral code about the way you do things. Whatever is appropriate for the project at hand is correct. So in this case, we're copying onto some shots which will take it with a minor tweak, and we are working on others by hand because they won't take any other grades other than ones specifically meant for them. Okay, this one has quite a strong green cast. What we will do is just be very careful as we fix this green cast. We're going to get a lot of pink in his skin tones. We're probably going to need to push the skin tones into magenta to get our primary and then bring the skin tones back with a curve in a secondary node in a second. Okay. Right, we need to fix the skin next. And also we've got a bit of an ear problem. Like I mentioned before, ears can be a bit of a problem with saturation, but we'll take care of that in a second. First thing we're going to do is UV sat. I want UV hue first. Going to make a selection around, or a qualification around magenta, and then we're just going to change the magenta back to a skin tone that's a better match for our contributor here. So that's pretty good. Now what we'll do is we'll just jack up the saturation a little bit. And again, the FS7 doesn't make the most flattering treatments. Of skin tones, so we need to be careful to avoid them looking a little bit odd. Okay, that's reasonably okay. I can probably fix the slight change in contrast there. With the vignette, although he still seems a little bit more orange this time around. Maybe a little bit more yellow and a little bit less saturated. There we go, that's getting there. The lips are going a bit of an odd colour. I'm probably going to have to fix them with a secondary later on. In fact, let's do that now in this next node. Let's try and fix his lip colour there, because his lips have gone completely orange and that's not correct. Okay, that's a fairly decent key. For the lips there, we'll just rotate the hue to the right ever so slightly, and now we've brought more natural red lips back. So you can see they're kind of weird and yellow there, And we've just brought that natural colour back with a secondary. Cool, we'll save because we've made good progress. Right, we've fixed the skin. So what we'll do is we'll just bunch these two up here so we know what they're doing. Primaries, skin, and now blue. So we've got a lot of green back here. The plants might be more of an issue here. So we'll just see how that goes. It could be that a HSL secondary is a better fit. We'll see what we can do. Hue versus hue, green, cyan, blue. Actually, no, we'll leave a note there. We don't want anything to get pushed past blue. And we just want to keep going. And we'll bring back our vector scope. Okay, we want to keep those yellowish greens green. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. So now what we'll do is we'll just bring up the blue saturation a bit. And we want to get a nice strong blue to match previously. Okay, we've got some noise down here. Let's just see if a HSL will help us out here. Yeah, you see we've got yellow noise present in the jacket, which is going to interfere, so we'll take the blue. We'll blur that right out as well. Now we've got a nice strong blue effect there. There's a little bit of green down there in the shadow, a little bit of awkward colour noise we might need to take care of during our second pass. We'll see if it's a big problem. Looking at that though, the environment matches pretty nicely. This is the dark, so that is this dark blue pillar down there, and that's a pretty nice match. Then we've got more of that. And the blue suit matches quite nicely as well as the skin. It's going to need a bit of work on the contrast, and it's going to need a face vignette, but for first pass that is fine. I'm quite happy with that. Okay, as we look through our timeline, we can see we've graded a lot of our stuff now. We're getting towards the end of first pass. We're going to go back through and grade all our B-roll. But we're almost at the end of dealing with our contributors. So, now, this guy runs the risk of being a little bit awkward. His clothing doesn't fit into the established colour scheme, so we're going to have to rely on those doors in the background. We probably don't want these wooden, well, whatever these are, they look like phone booths to me, but these wooden interiors, these orange interiors, to be too strong. This looks quite yellow to me already. I reckon we're going to have some warm light issues. It's going to be like a tungsten light shot. So we're not going to make any selections making his grey shirt blue, because as I showed you before, trying to key desaturated colours is really awkward, and we don't necessarily want to overpower everything. I know I've gone a little bit overboard. Well, I say overboard. I know I've changed the wall quite a lot. That was quite simple to do, and it's quite natural and convincing. It's going to be a lot of work to change this shirt from grey to blue, and it might even look a little bit odd, so I've already decided I'm not going to throw time away in doing that. So let's go ahead and tackle this shot. I strongly doubt anything is going to, that works very well. There you go. It's always worth investigating this. I mean, even every now and again, it might be that something doesn't actually work out but gives you an interesting idea for a different look or a different kind of style you might want to pursue, or something that you can do with the project. It's always worth checking these. This actually works quite nicely. I think if we do this, we just need to do a little bit of basic tweaking. So we can middle click and we can copy that across, and we can start from here. Now, the background is quite nice. I think there might be a little bit of blue in his hair, so I might just be tempted to warm these shadows up slightly whilst cooling the mids at the same time. Maybe there's a little bit of green in this shadow. Maybe I can pull it up towards magenta slightly. No, okay, let's take it back to where it was. Okay, so by and large, our shadows are looking alright. I think there is some elevated green in there. What we might do is try and tackle this with the log wheels and not with the primary wheels. There we go. Now we can already see that this yellow, if I undo that, you can see we've got this kind of greeny yellow quality. And now we've gotten rid of that. Also in these shadows here. Also we've cleaned out this barrier, or this column, whatever, and that back there, so that's quite nice. His hair is still a touch blue. That might be something I come back and fix inside the face vignette, actually. Now that I think about it, I think I'll come back in the second pass and do that on clip and fix that later on. Let's just go back to primary wheels and we'll sort our contrast out a little bit more. Right, I think that's pretty good. I think that's up to first pass standards. It might be a little bit dark, actually, but let's bring it back up a little bit. And let's watch this through. No one's walking through the background. I might be tempted to bring these down, but that might be something I do in second pass. I'll see if the client flags that up. They're not as distracting as I thought they might be. So we'll see what the client thinks. Okay, next shot. Okay, that clearly isn't going to work. Tell you what, let's go back. And we'll take a still from here, because the wide worked quite well, didn't it? That's pretty good, except he looks a little red. He's got a nice skin tone there. He's looking a little bit red, and the contrast just a tiny little bit out. This orange needs dealing with. I'll just shift the hue of that red ever so slightly. There might be a mild saturation mismatch here, but I will deal with that during second pass. One thing I do need to do in the first pass, though, is take care of this big orange splodge in the background. It's such a distinct colour that keying is going to be very easy. We just bring up our low saturation threshold, and we can bring down our brightness as well. That also gets some of the troublesome shadows in his ear, and then we just bring that down until it looks like it fits in with everything else. When we're bringing out of focus objects like this down or up, we want to try and avoid this kind of halo effect that we can get. And we address that by blurring things out very often and also not being too extreme. So that's probably a bit too much in the way of blur. And then what we might also do is just soften how does this move? It's a pretty static shot, so in that case it's easy to garbage matte. We will of course check every other version of this shot, make sure it doesn't move. Okay, we haven't put this in the right one, so groups. Where's man in grey shirt CU? Yep, assigned to group. There we go. Okay, that's a static shot, it's fine. So let's just continue working on this. Now his shirt has gone quite a nice blue, despite what I said earlier. The primaries picked that up and made the grey shirt blue. It could well be that his shirt is actually a kind of navy blue colour, and because the light was very yellow and warm originally, it was kind of neutralised when it was shot, and it's returned to its natural blue colour when we've dealt with the colour balance. Or it could be that it is really grey and it's just gone a bit blue with our grade. However, that works in our favour this time. So we might just take a look at some of the grey down here and see what we can do to bring that back up. We have a fair amount of green around here that's probably not being picked up by the curve the way it could be. That's a bit better. Okay, so now we're just looking at making that shirt a little bit bluer, and I somehow doubt we're going to be able to key it out. I might go back to making his shirt bluer during the second pass. It might be little bits of basic track. He doesn't move too much. I can probably track a garbage match shape onto that and paint the blue in quite easily. We'll see how much time we have. But that's something I'm going to put on my list. I know that I need to try and do a better job of matching that, and it could be that I garbage mat this out and bring it down, or I try and do some simple quick roto and put the blue back in his grey shirt in the close-up. Either or. But that's a second pass problem. Right. This shot is in the same location as this one. That's a pretty good copy across. I'd say that's appropriate here. So what we do is we click, and there we go. That's pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to tweak the contrast and give us some better grounded shadows. But with that, I am pretty happy. And that's because these two areas have borderline identical lighting and are clearly in the same location. So copying across is good and works here. Maybe on her shot, this wall's a little bit greener. Things are a little bit greener on the right-hand side back here. No, that's fine. Let's just take a look at our curve. We might just open the curve up a little bit and drag it back down here. There we go. Again, we've got kind of a blue cheese plant in the background. We'll see if our client has a problem with that. It bugs me a little bit, but our focus is clearly on her, so we can decide how big of a problem this is later on, during the second or even the third pass. Cool. Right, so let's go back and take a still here. You never know. It's always worth checking, especially when we're on the deadline. That's a pretty good copy across as well. Now, there's only one close-up of this contributor in the whole timeline, so it's not in a group. And when I say it, I refer to the shot. Cool, she might be a little bit redder here. Yeah. Where's our lip correction? Right, and we might just, there we go, and we'll, that's a little bit fluorescent, we'll bring them slightly down, and now we have more natural red lips again. Okay, she's still a little bit more yellow in the wide, so... That's pretty good. There's some contrast differences there, which I will take care of in the second pass, although I can go back to our primary and just drag our shadows down a bit. Cool, that's going to need a vignette to make a nice perfect match, but we can get there. Cool, so I'm happy with that again. Right, we're getting towards the end of dealing with our contributors, then we can deal with the B-roll, and then we've finished first pass. Just got this contributor left, and then we're on to B-roll. So she is in the same location as the woman with long hair from earlier. That's a good starting point. I'm happy to start from there. We need to refine. We need to refine this key here because we've got some quite obvious problems. So let's just take a look at the key we've got, and it looks like we need to... There we go. Make some changes there. So let's just see... Okay, it tracks a fair bit, but let's see if we can get past that. There's only one instance of this contributor in a wide, so we can do some tracking here. Let's just track that. And despite the watermark, the track is working fairly well. Cool. What we might want to do, get rid of this yellow cast shadow, or this yellow highlight. We might just... There we go. That makes it harder to notice. She's got blue eyes, and that's always nice when we're dealing with grades which handle blue quite nicely, because the blue eyes really come out. If they're a little bit too obvious and staring, we might bring the saturation of her eyes down a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. I quite like that. I think we're probably going to track her face and add some contrast here, so maybe the blue eyes need to be made a little bit less kind of obvious, because they can be a little bit epic sometimes if we're not careful. I think that's pretty good. I'm quite happy with that for first pass. We'll move on. And we will save. Just take a quick look at what we've got. Okay, nice. And we've got a few bits of B-roll, but we're really getting there. So once you get into the swing of things, it doesn't take too long. I mean, I would expect to turn this... Well, when I first got this contract, I turned it around in 8 hours, a full working day. And that had... I went into a bit more detail. I did some rotoscoping around clothes and got some of the finer details down. I did some rotoscoping for the plant back here to make sure it wasn't going odd. I did quite a lot of work around some of the grayer clothing as well to make them blue. The client decided they really wanted to lean into the blue grade we had here, so I wound up doing a lot of extra work on these grayer bits of clothing, and especially this guy's suit. That was a nightmare, but the client gets what the client wants in the end. We're not going to go quite that in-depth in this exercise. This is a basic, I say basic, but this is actually quite an advanced grade, but this is kind of our introduction to real-world work, and later on we're going to go into the more advanced stuff like heavier rotoscoping, lookup tables, and all that good stuff. So what we can do is we can start... Nope, that's the wrong one. Cool, we can start from here, and now we're just going to bring the skin back under control with the curve. Just bring some of the yellow back. And that's too yellow, so I want to keep some of the rosiness in her cheeks and then get the yellowish tones elsewhere. I think that's all right, so we're going to go to Hue Set, and we're just going to drag that up. Okay, that might be a little bit more. Okay, maybe there's a little bit more red in there, but I can fix that in second pass. The wall is good. Her eyes aren't as blue in this close-up as they are in the wide. It could be that I do a raccoon eyes adjustment or a tracked eye adjustment later on to fix that. We're going to leave that until second pass. And now going through this, I'd say we've finished first pass in our contributors. We're going to save, and now we're going to move on to our B-roll. So we're not going to be able to copy and paste things over to our B-roll because they're all completely different. In some cases we might get a decent starting point, but it's really unlikely. So what we're going to do is go in from scratch, and we just have to knuckle down and get this done. just bring that contrast down a little bit, give us a little bit more. Okay, and we'll bring the saturation up, and now we're going to sort out our colour balance, because we've obviously got more daylight tungsten mixing. A little bit of blue. We've got nice, quite a nice neutral background there. It just took a very small amount to get that sorted every now and again. A very, very small adjustment on the wheels has a huge effect. Might just ramp up the saturation a little bit more. Cool, I quite like that. That's a pretty good place for this shot to be in. Our contributor's skin, our board director's skin, is not up to the previous standards we had. He's a bit yellow here, so we might take a look. We'll see what HSL can give us. I suspect we're going to get quite a lot of interference from this region down here, but we can quite easily garbage map this out given its location. So let's have a look at what we can get. Okay, so it's a qualification. It's not super accurate. So what we'll do is we'll just check how he moves.